Okay. I went and smelted a ton of stuff. Oh, I gotta repair my axe. But I repaired some stuff. I chopped down some wood here and there, and yeah, I smelted. I got everything smelted, and I'm gonna make some bronze and go upgrade my stuff. Let's go do that right now. Oh, something's cooking. Looks like I'm still smelting. Whoa, I'm still smelting. Yo. Hee hee. Forgot about all that. Oh yeah, I still have some copper to smelt. Oh, there's quite a bit of it here. That's fine. Okay. That's good, that's good. We got a ton of it. I'm gonna wait till it's all smelted to get the total picture here. What am I looking at? But this is already very nice. Let's go fill up some of the smelters with some coal. And then I'm not gonna get right back into bronze grinding. There's something that I want to do just because I've been heading out way over here. I want to see like, if I'm going to be going out here. What's the deal with this river? Can I chart something here and then just sail up here and then have it be more convenient than just going all the way around over and up? Can I just go up here and find Black Forest and find everything that I need? So that's what I want to see. This is the type of scouting that I really like. I love doing all of this sailing route charting and stuff. Once you've charted it once, just going and sailing back and forth. You know, that's nice, that's convenient, but it can get pretty annoying too at the same time. It's all repetitive stuff. But in the meantime, I'll be able to make a whole bunch of coal and get everything nice and ready on that end. It's gonna be good. Let's repair. Definitely want to upgrade my stuff before I make the bronze mace and such. Let's see. I'm gonna make some more coal. Ooh, there it goes. Nice. Okay. I have stuff to say. I have the stuff to talk about, to rant about, whatnot. There's gonna be some negative, some positive, so it's gonna be a good mix. It's gonna be super nice and all that. Hey, let's go take this guy out at gear style. Why not? But I have more to say about No Rest for the Wicked and all of that. But I can always take these little rants and have them work in an overarching thing. Love doing that. I think it's just a much more constructive, more helpful, wholesome, more exceptional way of looking at and critiquing things rather than just saying, oh, you know, that's bad, you know. I probably said it before, but it's, you know, nowadays it's very easy to go look at something and be like, ah, yes, it's flawed in all of these different ways, and oh my god. But you rarely see people getting very good, productive ways forward. You know, people can sell you a problem, but they can't sell you a good solution, or any solution sometimes. And so I look at that, I'm like, oh man, that's kind of disappointing. But I try to be the alternative. I try. So I want to talk with more clarity about why I don't really like some of the design direction that No Rest for the Wicked has done, even though they've just had their 6th hotfix in really short time. So props for them on that regard, but there are just some things which don't make sense, and definitely coming from dev design principles. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about dev vision. I want to talk about this one video that I saw that was sponsored by Moon Studios and No Rest for the Wicked, and how it's just been really, really unfortunate in this sort of way. Basically, there is a certain amount of dev transparency that I would like every dev team to have. And that would be, like, what are your dev design principles? What are your goals? And, like, what is your dev design? Like, what is your vision? What is your actual development vision? Like, have all of that be really clear. That would be so wonderful, please. And sometimes you don't get it. Sometimes it's just like, I have no idea what they're going for, and the future of the game is murky. They could go down this path where they just destroy it, and I don't know if they will or not. And if you actually see that in a game that, you know, might be currently good, you know, just like be apprehensive, don't get sucked into it, whatnot. Just like be ready, be careful, be cautious. Maybe get the game on sale or hesitate or whatnot. Or I mean, if you have the money, you have the money. You can spend what you can spend. You know. So if you have the money, just, you know, who cares? You know. But dev design principles, you know, that really defines what decisions that they're going to make. Vision is all about the overall structure of the game. You know, it's like what type of game are they actually been looking to make from the start. Not just like how do they want to tweak that, how do they want to set that game apart. That would be more the vision, but or that would be more the principles. But like the vision is like, yeah, how we want to set it apart. And then dev, they gotta have goals. You gotta have like meaningful goals, like set goals, how we're going to accomplish our vision through our principles one at a time. So it's sort of like the principles are the bones and the vision is like the muscles of the game. And then your goals are how you're going to take things one step at a time, metaphorically and literally here. But yeah, that's all. It's all good to know. So, Iron Gate, we won't really ever have this, sadly, because things change around so much because they have different design principles among the team. It is not just one solid idea. Like, there is no agreed upon set principles. Things change. Official statements are made and then contradicted. Shit just fucking goes all over the place depending on what they want, and we don't really know what's going on. And that's a absolutely very, very annoying aspect of the studio. Yeah, for sure. But you know, we'll see how things go. We'll see how it changes. So far, it's been pretty good, but then again, things get to a certain point where it's like, okay, well, you guys removed the comfort rug change because of why now? Because of why now? You know, what was that again? It was always meant to be that way. Are we sure? Are we sure about this? Really? And yeah, we have a bit of a situation where I just kind of don't understand what's going on. And especially with like Hilder's Quest, where they're like, oh yeah, you know, we're just gonna we're not gonna have quests, we're not gonna have NPCs with quests. By the way, here's Hilder's Quest. JK. Like, no acknowledgement that they said that they weren't gonna have NPCs and quests. Like, no acknowledgement at all, because like it probably would lead to like a lack of trust. But honestly, that might just be their perception. Because if they said, like, oh, you know, the fans wanted this, so we listened to the fans, you know. We had this one stance, but we're going to listen to the fans. That would make them more trustworthy and not less trustworthy. So I really don't understand what the idea is. Like why didn't they just mention... Why didn't they mention that that was an official dev statement? And that they contradicted it for the better? It's like, why? What's the point? I don't understand. It's so strange. But, yeah. Shit like that happens where I'm just like, what? Or like, they're not filling in any of the tiers, the missing gear from tiers. Like, there's no mountain at gear, there's no plains bow, and they're just like, oh no, we're just not gonna do that because, you know, we don't want the game to feel like an MMO or whatever. Which is a weird, like, that's a, that's part of their vision, rather than, like, a principle, because it doesn't make any sense. It's like, what are you talking about? You know how to make good side grades, you've always known how to make good side grades. Always. And you continue to do this with, like, well, obviously, like, on launch, like, Frostner versus Porcupine, you know? Silver Sword sometimes versus Black Metal Sword. And then later on, like, Root and Fenris, like, Huntsman Bow, obviously, since launch, Huntsman Bow. But we just didn't know at the time. So, like, so on and so forth. Just keep on going with that. Where, we know that they know how to make alternate side grades and variety of good options and good secondary benefits. And yet they're still like, no, we're just, you know... But we don't want it to feel like MMO. It's like, it wouldn't. Just design it like you designed it. But it's like, is there a principle behind it? You know? Why are you so afraid to design stuff on the level that you've done before? And to let players have more fun? What is causing it? What principles are actually stopping you? Because not being like an MMO is not good enough. It's like, we're not going to let the players have more fun because we don't want it to feel like an MMO. It's like, A, that doesn't make it feel like an MMO. You know, as long as there aren't, you know, as long as the game isn't a massive multiplayer online game, then it is not an MMO. You know, I know that their actual dev design principle is like, oh, we don't want to design things that are really good specifically in co-op more than just like, you know, a unique feature, like a very specific unique feature. And it's like, well, you guys didn't need to have unique features, it's already there. And a lot of people say like, oh, well, yeah, like every single task in the game, whether it being gathering, building, this, that, like mining, combat, like everything's better with co-op. And yes, but that's just a natural aspect of co-op. They haven't specifically designed it for that. That's just what happens. What is concerning to me is that, like, sailing, the way that sailing functions right now, isn't that way. And this is what they cite, like, all the time when they say, like, oh, well, we don't want to have rudders, like, with oars and shit, or what have you, that co-op can use specifically to make ships sail faster when the wind is bad or what have you. We don't want to have that happen because they don't want to design specifically for multiplayer. They want to keep the game single player. And, you know, that's when they can cite, like, we don't want the game to feel like an MMO, which they don't. So for some fucking reason, that's not when they cite we don't want it to feel like an MMO as being a principle, even when that's the most reliable and that's when it makes the most sense. And it still doesn't make that much sense. It's just a co-op feature. That doesn't make it feel like an MMO. But it would make more sense than, we're not going to fill in the tiers because we don't want it to feel like an MMO. Doesn't make any sense. Let's see. But yeah, they cite sailing, and sailing is already an example of something that they've implemented that is the most co-op friendly already. That is already the most co-op unique thing that they've ever done. Because checking the map is different. It provides more utility because you can check the map ahead of where you're sailing, and of course the map takes up all the screen on hand except for like the outer edge, and it's really good in one aspect while you're sailing to check the map. It's really good one aspect while you're sailing to look all around you, behind and to the sides, in case there are serpents or what have you. It's really good while you're sailing to have somebody who's actually like steering the ship, of course, obviously. It's really good to have somebody who is like just looking ahead, like not sailing behind a big, a big sail in their face and not teetering it, but like while there's a big sail out and blocking the captain's vision, being able to check for rocks and like looking ahead in person. That's very good. And of course, when you have a serpent, it's obviously going to be good to have all of these things and have the one scouting person on the sides and back be like an archer, and have somebody be like a harpoon guy. And sailing the way it functions right now, you cannot say that's not designed for co-op. It is. It is designed for co-op. You've already broken that barrier. It's too late. It's too fucking late. You've made that for co-op. And you say, oh, well, you can do all these. No, you can't. You can't do everything solo. That's not how sailing is designed. It is very obviously better with co-op. More than anything, it's not just like a natural thing that happens with co-op. No. It is very specifically good with a bunch of people because they have very well-defined roles and they are just set in stone. Like somebody's doing this, they're good at that. Somebody's good at that. They're good. It's extremely specific to how sailing functions in this game. And so I look at that and I'm just like, oh man, might as well add those fucking rudders then. Might as well add the oars. Add the oars now. It is what it is. And so it's a bad example. It's a bad example of their dev design principles, like what they say or what they act upon is like all over the place. Like it's kind of incomprehensible. And with that, the transparency won't ever be like top tier. Never. As long as they are relatively incomprehensible, it's never going to be terribly interesting. I don't like these ridges. These ridges mean shallow. Shallow means we can't really sail. Not really. I mean, there's this lovely river copper right here, which is just fantastic. Let's mark it anyway, just in case. That's amazing. We've got tin and all of that, but being able to sail a car, I don't know. These lily pads are the biggest sign. Like the reeds and the lily pads are the biggest sign. Oh yeah, you see that rock there? This is a no-go. We can't do this. We're gonna have to do the usual. This would be a really annoying canal project because it would be ridge after ridge, rock after rock. There's another rock there. Can't do it. Even though there's these two pieces of copper here, which are absolutely glorious, it's so far out too at this point where it's like, there's no way. Okay, let's loop back around. We've got the river charted, which is fantastic, but we need to go back to the natural mining spot just out back there. We can pop right through for this, no problem. But yeah, I want to talk about the whole dev design principles, goals, vision thing, because there are certain decisions made in No Rest for the Wicked where I look at them and I'm just like, okay, well, what are their dev design principles? What is their vision? What are they trying to do when they implement things like these time-gated content? Like, oh, today's Saturday, there's a unique merchant that only appears every real-life Saturday. Like, these things, town upgrades take like hours of real time to make. It's like, what? Really? Why are they doing that? And recently I actually got a video recommended to me that kind of made things a little clearer. I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense. It makes a little bit of sense. Like, I understand a little bit. And I understood, but it shed a more negative light upon the situation. I was just like, oh god. What a giant fail if this is going to be what they're trying to do. And the reality is, based off of the one video of this gamer that they sponsored, they want No Rest for the Wicked to be a forever game. This is not just going to be a cute little game which you play and you enjoy and then you're done with it. Even if you put 1,000 hours into it, even if you've enjoyed it and you played it to death, maybe 10 playthroughs, and you say, "Oh no, I'm done. I'm satisfied. I've had my experience. It was a great joy. I'm good. That was phenomenal." They don't want you to ever say, "I'm good. I'm going to play another game and I'm going to enjoy myself with some other solo or co-op game." They don't want you to ever say that. And that's why things take real time. That's why certain things happen on real life days. That's why there are some real life hour upgrades that are just literally shortcuts in town, in your hub town. It's like, really? You're creating a problem for me to spend a real life hour to solve? Really? And yeah, they don't want you to ever put the game down. And when I saw that, I was just like, oh my god, because they didn't explicitly say that. Because how could you? That's such a brutal, controversial thing to come out with and say. No, they sponsored some guy on YouTube that does content on ARPGs to say it for them. And this guy, he was looking at a lot of the ARPGs, just basically saying like, well, I don't like, it's not good. The big problem with ARPGs is that they're not games which you want to spend months or years at a time playing. You play this campaign or this cycle or this season, you go through the content, and then you put it down, and then you play something else. And then he said that was the golden age, but it blew his mind that, say, the Diablo 3 viewers or the Diablo 3 devs, would say that they're fine with that. It blew his mind. He said it. I was just like, oh my god, there's no way. It's like, this video is sponsored by No Rest for the Wicked. They want to make it a forever game. They want to make it a game that you play forever, that you don't put down, that you just play and keep playing and keep playing. And they're going to implement a ton of fuck you designs in order to make it happen. And if this is the goal, if this is their dev design goals and their vision for the future, then I'm going to, once there's controller support, once there's custom controls, and I can actually just mess around with the game as is, with all of my muscle memory intact for Elden Ring and everything, then I'm going to continue onward, and I'm going to enjoy the game for what it is, and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to do my things, I'm going to make guides, and I'm going to try to steer the game in an alternate direction with its goals, with its vision. And if that doesn't happen, if the devs don't listen, then I'm going to stop playing. I'm going to stop playing when I'm done. And that's it. Any sort of very medial thing, I won't play unless there's actual good guides that showcase that this is some sort of meaningful change. That this is some sort of really meaningful, that they're not just implementing a new coat of paint on something, piece of gear, and it's like, okay, well, does this challenge them? Does this change the current build landscape in any meaningful, interesting way? If no, then I'm gonna dip. I'm gonna stay gone. I'm gonna play, something else. And this is coming from somebody who has enjoyed 2,000 plus hours of Valheim. I have been very comfortable just going out and just going back to a classic that I've loved to play once every year, like Final Fantasy 3. I did a playthrough on that, making more Elden Ring videos, branching out. This is what I wanted to do since the beginning of the channel. I want to play and cover a ton of different games and make guides for a ton of different stuff, because that's what I like to do. And that's what I assume most gamers like to do, is like they like to play their favorite selection of games. Not just one game. They want to play their favorite selection of games. Because, of course, you know, it's going to sound patronizing for me to say this, there are a lot of different genres and different stories and different environments and ambience and art styles and music that can happen and can be expressed in these games. And people want to see that variety. People like a variety, even within a strict genre, even within whatever strict tastes that people might have, like myself. There is still a variety in that, because a lot of people have their own unique take on whatever genre that it is. And, I don't know, to try to design a forever game in this day and age that's not like a roguelike or something, I'm just like, goodbye. You know, I don't even play forever games to begin with. I don't play roguelikes. I don't like forever games. To try to just take my enjoyment away from like other games and like prevent that this experience via No Rest for the Wicked is going to be a smooth single player option or co-op option, because they want to go and make sure that you don't play anything else. Like, oh, we're gonna make the quality of life a fucking nightmare so that you don't want to play anything else. That doesn't even make me want to play that game. Okay, that doesn't make me want to do what it does. It makes me want to do the opposite. And the funniest fucking thing is, even though there's been 6 hotfixes within a week of early access launch, which is fucking unheard of quality, the game is still in a state where people don't want to replay it. They see these things and they don't want to replay. They say, oh, well, you know, I can just go in and I can take this new character into the old world and I can still go and power level, and I can go and experiment with all these things. And guess what? They still don't do it. Because guess what? In that video that they sponsored, well, they went over Steam numbers. It's like, well, they went over Twitch numbers and stuff like that. They looked at numbers, and they said, yeah, after all this time, the player base dropped way off. It dropped way low. That seems like a problem. Dropped way low. Seems like a problem. Guess what No Rest for the Wicked did in its numbers? It dropped way low. It dropped off. It dropped off. Yeah, it did. And consistently, it is getting beat out by Elden Ring. Elden Ring. Yes, Elden Ring. A game that has been out for how long? Like 2 years now? Over 2 years? When the last time it got a patch? 11 months ago? 11 months ago. I need to find one. And it's outperforming No Rest for the Wicked on Twitch numbers. People actually interested in it. People that are watching it, that are experiencing it, that are enjoying it. It's getting constantly beat out. Constantly. And significantly, too. And I'm just like, I don't care about that. If a game's good, the game's good. But if the devs of No Rest for the Wicked went and made these terrible decisions in anti-fun quality of life, and they went and said, well, we want this because we want people to keep playing our game, you fucked up. You fucked up 2 times as much. You failed on both aspects. You took a negative to try to get some arbitrary positive, and guess what? You couldn't even get that. Even after 6 hot fixes in a week, which is unheard of, you still couldn't get it. You fucking still failed. So fix your shit. I believe in you. I believe that you still can be the best fucking game that I've ever goddamn played, that I've ever goddamn seen. But goddamn, you have to fix that shit. It has to be fixed. All the anti-fun quality of death that they've got set up right now has got to be fucking scrapped. All of it. Goodbye. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it'll work out. We'll see. Look at all this bronze, y'all. Check that shit out. Check that shit out. Let's upgrade this ad gear. Yes, quality 3. And then I need some wooden shit for the axe. I want to get that to quality 3 as well. Ooh, do I need regular wood? I probably do. Let's go downstairs. We probably have that. We've got core wood. We do not have regular wood in here. Let's go grab that right now. Troll hide's good. That's been good. I suppose I still didn't address why I don't like the whole like dailies, weekly stuff. That is just going to end up cutting away from the quality of the main side quests that exist. Basically, all the assets could be used for more meaningful, more interesting, story-rich side quests like, say, The Witcher 3 had, you know, all those years ago. And, you know, we're not getting that. All the assets that they've already used into dailies and weeklies that could just be used for more limited yet higher quality experiences. And it's not. It's being time gated. It's like, inherently because of FOMO now, quality is probably not going to be that good. For instance, the merchant that only appears once a week, you know, today on Saturday. You see this and I'm just like, oh no. If he has good gear, why does he appear once a week? That's horrible. Really? People just want to play. That's terrible design. If he has bad gear, why is he a merchant in the game at all? Why did the devs spend time developing him as a merchant if he has shit gear? And it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation because of the inherent once a week design. If you made it so that he was there all the time, then you could have him have like varying inventory, some of it with this quality, some of it with that quality, and it would make sense. Like you could have it change over time. But as it stands right now, it's like, oh man, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, because of the design at hand. That's just awful. That's awful design. I should have made a bronze pickaxe. No, I should have made a bronze pickaxe. Oh well, that's fine. Skeletons I can now like one shot, so it's okay. In fact, I can take care of skeletons so well that I can put the stag breaker away for now. Where do I want to put it? Ooh, I've got this old chest right here. I've got additional arrows. Let's put this in here and that in there as well. Excellent. A lot of the kit is still good. I want to chart another river. I do. Gotta drink some water too. Ah. That is nice. Okay, my campfire ran out of wood. Let's actually put these pickaxes back for now. I'll just put them up here. Yeah, I want to chart one more river just to make things clear. I also want to take advantage of all of my additional upgrades and gear, upgraded gear, whatnot, because I want to chart really out here. Like, I want to look at what's going on around here, basically. So there's a grate, we've got this, we've got that. There's a swamp. I do want to put a portal in the gray troll cave, and I want a portal for spawn. So I gotta start making some portals. I gotta make one. Gotta get that set up. I need more. I'm gonna need more fine wood. Yeah, I'm gonna need 42 more fine wood. That's fine. Ah, some of the oaks have grown. Perfect timing. You know, also understanding, of course, dev design principles. Not only does it help the community get devs on the right track if they've gone out of line, because they're humans, they're not perfect. Even though they've worked their ass off, they're human. But also, it helps us engage more constructively with them once we know their vision. Specifically, like, in Ashlands. Ashlands PTB, I don't really know much, so I can't really spoil you. I'm not gonna be spoiling much of anything. Just how people are interacting with it. There's interesting complaints right now. Just that, like, oh, the spawn rate of enemies is too high. And I think that's very funny because some people, I mean, one of my community members said that he saw somebody say that the game, gear-wise, was, like, pretty linear, which is very funny. Because it's like, have you played the game, you know? Have you experienced, like, the Valheim experience ever since early access launch? Do you know that, like, you can get silver early, or you can go in the swamp earlier, and get this and that? It's like, you can do so many things early, which is great. And then, like, Frostner is good, like, for a while, and it's still good even in early Mistlands. Iron Sledge is good all the way through until early Mistlands. Like, all these things are really solid. Like, Iron Gear is good in the early plains, and so on. It's just really good. And it leads to, like, it's still, like, a relatively linear experience, but it's not as linear as a lot of people tend to end up making it out to be. And it's like, how do you intend on providing, like, a good, cohesive, constructive criticism to the devs if you don't even know how the game functions? Like, if you don't know the game inside and out, how are you supposed to give quality feedback with certain regards in Ashlands? It doesn't make any sense. There's going to be, like a great deal of, like, lacking in understanding. Like, yeah, you can report the most basic bugs, but so can everybody else. That's a ridiculous thing to me. It's like, yeah, no shit. Everybody can report bugs that are basic. That's very easy to do. That's why I don't do it. I don't like doing that. I like doing the more interesting design. It's much more interesting to me. Alright, let's set up these portals here. We have now, what we're going to do is, this one's going to be spawn. And we're going to have this one that's going to be gray. And that's good for now. We need to set these up over in their respective locations. But, you know, I think that a lot of people, they play this game and they look at the gear and they come from games which don't have very good, like, secondary benefits that give you, like, non-standard gameplay styles, like having good support and control, having a lot of good utility. A lot of people come from a gaming background where it's like, oh, I deal damage, I tank, I heal, and it's like, that's it. It's like, really? That's it? That's it? That's so basic. I would never play a game that's that basic. No, I can't do it. It hurts my brain. Like, it's not, there's no analysis to be had. Like, there's hardly any. And I'm just like, oh god. It's also, but it's way too basic. Way too basic. Like, running the numbers on that, it's like, anybody can fucking do that if they understand They can just put it through a spreadsheet and have a good time. That's it. That's all it takes. Like non-standard analysis is only able to be done by people who have like mildly aware like brains, I guess. But, you know, you can't just be a fucking robot and like calc DPS, and then you have to actually go look and say, well, the secondary benefits are not giving me these exact numbers, but they're giving me effective domination over this entire encounter. And this encounter is very more, you know, it's so much more difficult than your standard encounters, to the point where you can just go out and use this strat and dominate everything. And yeah, it doesn't have the biggest fucking neuron activating numbers on the screen, but who cares when you're shredding through everything known to man? It doesn't matter. You just absolutely shit on everything that you see. Nine. And so these types of things I'm always interested in. I will pretty much only play games that have good aspects in support, control, utility. That's it. It has to be non-obvious. It has to be something that you can analyze, something that you can work out logically. And sure, there are always going to be some numbers involved, and I can do that too. But it is the least interesting to me. And a lot of people just have not come from this gaming background, this gaming idea. And so they look at like very unique things like stagger locking and like being proactive and just these ideas of support and control, and they're like, oh my god, they're probably terrible. They didn't try them out. And it's like, well, you didn't engage in some of the content that the game has to offer then. So like, if you're not going to engage in some of this content, then why are you like public testing? Like, I don't understand. You basically like outed yourself as somebody that doesn't look at what the developers are offering you. That's crazy to me. Why would you think that you'd be an effective tester then? That blows my goddamn mind. What is happening? Let's just give these boars a carrot. A single carrot, and then I can make a single soup. So yeah, it's just, I'm so confused by that. Like, what? Really? You don't come from like a game with like really interesting gear? And I'm gonna be very positive now, because this comes with a very cool segue into my favorite game of all time and the gear that game has to offer. I want to talk about Final Fantasy IX for a while. Holy shit, that game's gear system is on another level. If they implemented that game's gear system into like a more action-oriented game, everybody would lose their goddamn minds on how good it was. It is so fucking good. There's a bunch of info, but it's not basic. It's not like this silly drop down where half of the stuff is irrelevant. Like you look at the Valheim stuff where it's like, okay, I don't care about the block armor, the block force, the parry bonus. You know, the only thing I'm looking at is damage, use stam. I'm looking at movement speed, because knockback, I can just feel that out and understand by testing how good that is. That's all I care about. I care about move speed, which honestly, because they're so like roughly the same, it's something that I immediately process and I understand. So I'm really just caring about damage, use stam, and then like backstab modifiers sometimes. The durabilities, whatever, like the weight is whatever. So much of this drop down of numbers in your face might seem overwhelming, but the majority of it doesn't even have to be there. Like, if I went in, like, if most of this information that wasn't very good was something that you could check in the Forge as a GUI, like, that would be totally fine. And you just cut the numbers down to not overwhelm people as much, that would be great. It would be crisp, it would be clean, no caffeine, 7-Up, not sponsored. But yeah, let's see, let's chart in there. let's see, where do I want to go? I guess we'll just run back over to spawn. Let's get full rested, and then put a portal up around spawn. So, Final Fantasy IX. This is the last game for a long time in the series that had ATB. Now, I started off this whole series, this Bronze Age Baron series, talking about why ATB is actually so good and why a lot of people have a stunning lack of like gaming sense to the point where they don't even understand the quality of the emergent gameplay that ATB provides. And that still kind of rattles me a little bit, because how are people this ridiculously mentally lacking, right? That's truly shocking. Like, this didn't exist. This didn't exist in the gaming sphere, even back when, you know, we still had, like, GameFAQs forums and shit. Like, it did not happen in the past. Everybody always just intuitively knew, because that's what the game had to offer, but also there was, like, every game came with, like, a guide booklet that at least had basic strategies. And I'm thinking maybe that, like, should be a setting that has basic information that people would understand. Like, there kind of is in Valheim already, because you go to settings and then accessibility, I believe it's in, like, tooltips or something. Where is it? Gameplay. There's Raven hints, and then there's button hints. So all these things, like, you should have one of these for basic strategy. It should be called, like, Basic Assistance, BA. I wanted it to be basic strategy, but that sounds like BS, which is the exact opposite of what it would be. And so in these games like Final Fantasy with ATB, a BA in that case would be, hey, leave people on standby so you can A, get custom combos, but B, you can cover yourself, whether it is through healing or curing a status ailment. All of these things can be debilitating over time if they are not accounted for. And the game allows you the freedom to keep this option open for a variety of different ways and people and characters. And you can do this so many different ways. It's always going to change depending on the encounter, because we have subtle RNG implemented, but it is skill-inducing RNG rather than skill-reducing RNG. It forces you to adapt and never arbitrarily punishes you. You have to adapt. You have to solve it. A skilled player will be able to have a wonderful time, regardless of the situation, regardless of the RNG, and will actually be able to enjoy the RNG, because it is skill-inducing RNG rather than skill-reducing RNG. Another really cool aspect of... I think my nose is bleeding a little bit. Let me see. Oh no, it's not my nose. I must have picked a scab on my cheek or something. Another really cool aspect of skill-inducing RNG rather than skill-reducing RNG are some of the weapon enhancements or gem slots that you can socket on with Champions of Norath and Champions Return to Arms. It's DOT and then control, but in such a way where there's a tick on the DOT, and eventually it's guaranteed to happen within the tick of the DOT, the duration of the DOT. You will have a flinch on the mob or even boss that you're fighting. In which case, that allows you to get a couple of more hits in, applying more DOT, and then you can keep going. So as long as you're able to play carefully and play smart, and you have like good enough reflexes, you will be able to take advantage of the skill-inducing RNG. The RNG will benefit you no matter what. You still always have this flat benefit, you just don't know the exact way, the exact time in which things will happen. It will happen, you just don't know when. And so you have to be smart to take advantage of that RNG. And that's skill-inducing RNG in a nutshell. Now, there's a great deal of preparation that you have to do in turn-based games, regardless of all of this quality in ATB, regardless of the skill-inducing RNG that exists within the system already. There is still mostly preparation that you have to do. It is still an RPG, it is still turn-based, you have to set up, you have to understand certain things as they're happening. And you have to be able to work and change your setups regardless of what you might have and what you might think is very good, depending on the boss, enemy, or zone in hand. And how do we go and make this interesting? How do we fix this system up to be really solid with all of this prep when the ATB system has it being so much fun as we are solving as we are in the execution phase of our strategy? How do we make the preparation, the planning phase, just as cool as the actual combat itself? And the solution resides in Final Fantasy IX's absolutely ridiculous and amazing gear system, ability system, and its tooltip system, like its actual help and support, where there are so many unique aspects to gear that give significant benefits, and yet it's still not overwhelming in useless drop-down numbers or just limited aspects that don't really assist outside of their primary benefit at all. That it becomes very intuitive. It is a simple ramp up from the simple gear, the easy gear, up into the amazing gear. It never becomes too complicated, and it always significantly benefits you. There's a great deal of variety, and it is fantastic all the time. Alright, we just gotta get over to this gray TC. So, sometimes you see it in gear in a lot of games. It'll provide like a 3 to like 10%, and maybe a lot of games will be like, I will give you 20% buff as like end game gear. And like that'll stack over a variety of things, and it's like, aha, I'm dishing out huge benefits, and you're just being able to shit on everything with even more numbers on the screen. And it's like, that's cool, you know, build making, it's still fun in that way. And it's cool, but then you want to dive deeper and you realize you can't really do that. And it's like, oh no, you know, the systems aren't in place for me to really pop off. No. Oh well. And in Final Fantasy IX, and a lot of these Final Fantasies with ATBs, but particularly Final Fantasy IX, there are a lot of ways which you can drop control on enemies. You can provide secondary benefits and basically shut down enemies where they can't really do much to you. And then you are, with strategy, overcoming them even though you're not dealing much to them, because they're not doing much to you. And so there's all sorts of different ways. Yes, you can go out and have this battle of attrition, but you can also just play it safe, control the enemy, as you're focusing up with the Black Mage Vivi, the big damage dealer, and then boom, he's quad focused up, and all of a sudden we're dealing 3,000 damage in one spell, when we would normally be dealing about 300 to 400 with a regular attack. And it's like, well shit, now we're two-shotting bosses after all this is said and done. Amazing, amazing. But it takes a lot of skill to get there. It takes taking advantage of a skill-based RNG to get there. And you have to have a good setup and understand things to get there. I'll give you some specific examples now. Beating around the bush too much here, you know? There are abilities called killer abilities. So, you know, beast killer, bird killer, bug killer, man eater, things of that nature. And the whole point of having these equipped is that, well, you have a limited amount of ability crystals, and you can equip them if you take a certain amount of ability crystals and then you slot them to that. So you're figuring out, it's give and take, which one do you want to have equipped. You can change them around after each battle is done. Very cool. Here's the thing. To learn abilities, you have to have certain gear equipped. After a certain amount of time, you will master them, and now, even if you don't have the gear equipped, boom, you can still use the ability. And these can be passive abilities, they can be active abilities. You can learn multiple from each. You can have certain abilities that are exclusive to one character. And on the same piece of gear, there are other abilities that are used on other characters. There's gear that it's like very specific for certain characters, just in general, like oh, only these types of characters can equip this, and it's like oh, that's very cool. But oh my god, the game is just so varied in that aspect. It's just phenomenal. So these killer abilities, mind you, they are very unique in that let's actually get rid of some troll hide for now. You know how I mentioned that some gear have like 10, 15, like 20% buff to your damage? These abilities provide a 50% damage buff. But again, you have to know that these enemies are in the area, and then it takes a resource, your ability crystals, to equip them. And what that means is that you have to be very, very observant. You have to be careful. There are also certain rules, generally, with elements to take advantage of elemental abilities, too. So, you have, let's say, certain enemies, and you have certain rules behind them. So, dragons are always weak to ice. Always. The game never tells you that. It's just, you have to say, like, oh, well, logically, these reptilian-type creatures are, like, warm-blooded, and, they're probably weak to ice. It turns out they're all weak to ice. Yes, it's true. They're all weak to ice. And that's just something that you can learn, and that you can recognize. Oh, this is a dragon, it's probably weak to ice. Boom. Hit it with an ice ability. Excellent. Excellent. Oh, well, what if I have this piece of gear that gives me ice element up, and then I'm able to attack it with an ice elemental attack? Now I'm dealing 50% more, and if it's a melee attack, if I have MP attack ability on, then I'm dealing another 50% more. What if this dragon is in the air? Well, if it's in the air, then it's weak to bird killer. If it's in the air, it's also automatically weak to wind. That's another rule. And then I can equip dragon killer and bird killer, and attack with like an ice elemental weapon, and then have another piece of gear that boosts my shit up by 50%, and then have MP attack as well. And now we're dealing like, let's see, dragon killer, bird killer, ice up, and then MP attack. That is 250% bonus damage. And so being able to observe, understand the implied rules, and taking advantage of the situation with preparation, while still taking you resources that you have to actively decide upon, what to trade off, what to give and take to make this happen, gives you an enormous buff, an enormous boon. And that's just in terms of raw damage. That's not all that's interesting to me. In fact, that's probably the least interesting part, even though it is so impactful and so wonderful. No. The most interesting part with abilities are ones active or passive that allow you to shut down the opponent, the boss, what have you. Being able to shut them down completely. Basically say, you suck now. I'm going to do my thing, prep. I'm going to have my main character try to steal really good gear from you that you can only get from certain bosses. And then, I'm going to have all sorts of hell rained down upon them because I've been prepping while in the fight. Because of the buffs and debuffs that you can do actively, there's haste, shell, protect, all these things. But certain abilities are auto haste, auto reflect. Oh, interesting. Loudmouth. Now my character is immune to silence. Guess what? He's a caster. So my spellcaster is immune to silence. And now I can cast all you want. Oh, are you a creature that's going to use this move after I do anything casting against you? And you're going to try to silence me? No problem. I'm immune. I've equipped an ability that I've learned from a piece of gear. And I'm immune. Immune. Now I'm going to use slow on the boss so it can't act as much. I'm going to be able to put blind on it so that it can't hit with good consistency. I'm going to have silence on the boss itself so that it can't cast water and devastate the party while I'm trying to set up, steal its gear, and then buff buff the party at the same time. All of these things in mind, keeping these things in mind as you're fighting it, is fucking phenomenal. Not to mention that gear can also have elemental affinities, not in terms of buffing damage, but reducing damage too. There's gear that halves elemental damage. Straight up halves it. Literally the first armor in the game for your heavy guy halves wind damage. The first armor. And it also teaches you Bird Killer, by the way. In addition to having primary stats, like defense, or maybe even boosting your stats, which is helpful during level up because you earn fragments of stats, so it's good for stat maxing to have certain gear that boosts stats as you level up. Of course, certain bosses, it's good to have gear that boosts stats in a certain way as well. Maybe if you want one character to be faster, one character to be slower, so that you can perform specific combos in certain orders more reliably. Maybe you want certain people to have certain abilities, so you go grind out, but you don't want too much EXP so that you can get them stat maxed with better gear later. And so you start casting the stop ability, which you gained on a side quest, which is still even more rewarding because it is gear that you would have never got in the first place that early in the game. And all of this in mind, all of this old gear, all of this gear that might seem a little bit worthless as time goes on, can be used in synthesis, in which you take old gear and you magically at a shop turn it into new gear, which is better that you can just buy from an ordinary shop. And that's going to provide its own benefits, its own abilities, its own stat buffs, its own basic primary stats. Yeah. It's fucking phenomenal. Not to mention, it's not just having elemental damage. That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of elemental defensiveness. We're also talking about elemental nullification. Absorbing. You get to heal when they try to do something. And so the whole time, not only is the execution phase, or the main combat phase, supposed to be all action, all neuron activation, just go, 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 get your damage in, just don't think at all. No, you're supposed to be thinking a lot. It is not just an execution phase. It is not just a combat phase. It is an observation phase. It is a testing phase. And it is one that allows you to make use of all of your preparation, all of your gear, all of your resource selection, all of your setup, loadouts, builds, make sure everything is tip-top shape so that you can use all of your smarts in terms of the untold rules, in terms of the game's mechanics, in which, in a non-patronizing way, the game says, figure me out and master me. And these things result in a fucking phenomenal gear system and an even more phenomenal varied gear acquisition type. So you have loot that's in chests, loot that's in hidden areas, you have a unique auction house synthesis, you have regular shops, you have all of these things and more. Side quests, even during like somewhat interactive cutscenes, you can get loot. You can. It's absolutely ridiculous. All sorts of hidden things, hidden towns, hidden this, hidden that, optional quests that are really good for characterization, that have amazing music tied to them. God, it's just constantly phenomenal. And again, if they implemented such a system in an action-oriented game, everybody would lose their goddamn mind at the sheer quality of it. Quality, and yet not overwhelming. And believe me, if you think it's overwhelming, maybe I did a bad job presenting it. Because it is basically Pokemon simple, okay? There's less aspects going on in Pokemon. And I love using Pokemon as a metric because you can't say it's too complicated. Nobody can say it's too complicated without just self-reporting themselves as being like awful. Okay? Like, alright, it's just like a bad gamer in general. Because a bunch of kids can do it. You can do it too. Oh, you can't do it too? That's a you problem. Sorry. It is what it is. And so that happens all the time. Especially like in real life with board games. Like I work in retail and I experience this quite a bit. I'm explaining some sort of simple game and then I have to say like the rules are easier than like Monopoly. You grew up playing Monopoly, no? Oh, it's easier than Milbourne. You grew up playing that, no? Well, it's easier than that. How can you say it's too complicated? That's a you problem. And of course, you know, in your retail, you can't say that's a you problem. But it's obvious, it's just implied. Like, they know. It's like, it ain't too complicated. And what's really bad is that they might say this when there's a store full of people. And the people might have a bad conception on certain games. It's basically it's like you're slandering the game in front of people. You're giving these products a negative, an arbitrary and unneeded negative connotation of complicated. Too complicated. Too complicated implies, of course, too complicated. Not just for me, but in general. You know, that's what people will say. That's what people will think. And so it's like, you know, why are you giving, you know, this game an undue reputation, an unearned title upon it? You know, let's not lie here. And so, of course, I have to step in, just even for the sake of the gaming scene, for the product scene in general, for the job, for the store, for the work, for the gaming community, board game or video game. I have to step in when people are getting out of line and just say, that's a you problem, whether it's subtle or otherwise. Like, believe me, there's still only about 5, 6, 7 factors on the most interesting, in-depth piece of gear in Final Fantasy IX. You start off with like 2 or 3. As you get up to it, as you go through the game, there will be a natural and smooth ramp up forward. And if that's too complicated for some people, maybe get a new hobby. Okay? You know what? Maybe just, you know what? Don't play specific types of games. Maybe new hobbies is too inflammatory. If it's, you know, if their hobby is playing RPGs, then a new hobby is just a new genre. And you can still game and you can still enjoy. But a lot of people will say, like, the hobby is a genre. It's like, it is this. And it's like, well, if it's specifically tied to a genre and if people can't handle the amount of very meaningful, very solid aspects that 9 throws at you, yeah, new hobby time. New hobby time. And I don't want to say, you know, some people will jokingly be like, oh, time to go back to Call of Duty. Time to go back to Call of Duty. These people did not come from Call of Duty. It's just they got into certain games over the years which secondary benefits are not designed well. The devs didn't design them well. They fucked up. They made gear and gear systems that are so goddamn meaningless outside of the primary stats that a whole swath of gamers look at this and say, oh, well, you know, this one's got a lot of defense and therefore the number's big, it's good, the big number. And sometimes it is big number. That's the joy of a system as relatively simple and yet also in-depth and mechanically meaningful as Final Fantasy IX's. Sometimes it is just you're looking for big number. Sometimes. But most of the time, you want to be careful, you want to be diligent, and that's going to reward people who are observant, that's going to reward people who are strategic, but it's also going to set people on that path from the get-go. Oh yes, you're going to be strategic person if you were paying attention at all from the get-go. And luckily in that game, in the original PlayStation controllers, of course, you hit select on any piece of gear, and it'll tell you fancy properties that it has. It will tell you. And you can go over any ability, passive or active, and it will tell you what it does. There's nothing that's really terribly hidden, aside from certain unspoken rules like, okay, the dragons are weak to ice that you have to figure out. Any flying creature takes bird killer bonus damage. Any flying creature is automatically weak to wind damage, that sort of thing. Everything else, though, you can check the tooltip and it will tell you. The game is really good at communicating this. And, well, you want to know the amount of bad gear in that game? A bad gear that's not communicated as being bad is maybe like, I don't know, 4 or 5 out of the like 100 plus bits of gear. Maybe 4 or 5 throughout the game. Now, there's a certain set of gear that's supposed to be like a roleplay, as in like it's like traditional Hawaiian luau gear. And you read the flavor text and it says as much. And so it is communicated to you that that piece of gear, that set of gear, is just all roleplay. It's all just flavor text. It's RP. It's simple. It's not to be taken seriously as actual, legitimate mechanical option. And that's phenomenal. That's like, well done, guys. You know, you nailed it. Big respect. There's such little gear that isn't particularly good in terms of endgame, in terms of progression, in terms of different setups. So much is going to be good. And also, no character is bad. No character is bad. And I don't mean like, oh, well, not particularly strong. No, I mean like nobody's like outclassed. Nobody's outclassed. You know? It's like, oh, well, I'm dealing max damage guaranteed with these characters. And it's at a very low MP cost, very low mana cost. Okay, that's cool. But it's not mechanically incentivized to have a low mana cost versus most of the game, because you've been taking them out with a decent mana cost and been just fine the whole time. And so as long as we're dealing potentially max damage and also having all of this control, support, everything, well, then our other characters are incentivized too. And yeah, that's the case. Ultimately, strategy and nuance wins out over just raw damage for cheap. Which is amazing. It's amazing. You gotta think. And the game wants you to think. It'll make you think. And it is good for it. Okay. Last thing I said, because I'm clearly winding down here. I'm clearly ending the video soon. Guys, don't settle for unofficial content, okay? Do not settle for content that might be flawed if it's unofficial. If it's not done yet, if it's incomplete, if it's early access. Don't say, this is good, I'm liking it the way it is, and then I'm gonna defend it with my life. You know, yeah. Like, it's not, no. If it's being actively worked on, and things can change, take a part in trying to change it for the better, and be constructive. Be able to learn from the past with a lot of different options and games that did certain things well, games that didn't do things well, and dev teams that were behind them, and understand the vision, understand the principles, understand the goals, understand certain systems, why they worked so well, and why others didn't. And, yeah, don't pour your soul into something that isn't complete yet, and that the devs are very specifically trying to change for the better. Does not need to be fixed in place, but also try to steer them on the right way. whether it's Valheim or No Rest for the Wicked or future Final Fantasy that I'm going to play. Well, because Final Fantasy IX Remake is turn-based A to B according to the leaks, and all of the leaks have been correct so far. So, well, when the time comes, I'll be playing that one and be making guides and I've got more things to say about that game, but that's for its own video. This one's over. Thank you guys for listening to me. I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying this series and have been giving me more support on this series particularly. Next episode is more bronze grind. Yes, even more bronze grind, but I gotta have my buckler. I gotta have more stuff. And I need decoration, guys. I need to have decoration so I can build up things, make a new build. I don't know what I want to make. What should I make? What type of building would be good for my base going forward? I'm trying to think. Maybe a unique kitchen house or a unique storage house. I said I'd make those. So we'll see. We'll see how they go. And I need extra bronze at the end for Mistland stuff and extra copper for more Mistland stuff. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys some other time. Bye.